Good morning and welcome to ASI's Tuesday Morning Show, where ASI's most outspoken editors talk promo products. I'm Melinda Lagos, editor-in-chief of ASI's magazines, and we have a really special guest host, Joan Chaikin, everyone.
Hey, how are you? Can you hear me?
Joan Chaikin is our managing editor of ASI's magazines. How are you, Joan?
I'm great. I'm excited to talk to our guest today.
Yes, we have a guest we're very excited about. He's one of our favorite speakers from the ASI show. Don Sanders of Don Sanders Marketing is going to join us in just a couple minutes. He's been a distributor for how many years, Joan?
30.
For 30 years, selling more than
$24
million in promo products. Apparently at a profit margin of 43%. So that's
pretty amazing.
Darn good.
He's a renaissance man.
He is. So we're going to want to talk to him. Of course, I know him. Many people know him for his very colorful shoes, which we can ask him about too. He also had launched about 10 years ago sellpromoproducts.com, which is a free distributor sales training website. And the site is visited annually by more than 58,000 salespeople who are looking to increase their business. So let's say good morning to Don Sanders. Hi, Don.
Hi, how are you? Y'all are very flattering, so I want to thank you for all that.
Did you like that lead-in? That's impressive.
Y'all are either good liars or you're amplifying the truth quite well, so I want to thank you for that.
Are you wearing shoes right now?
No, I'm actually barefooted. So
okay, I don't normally ask our guests what they're wearing, but, in your case, you're known for your shoes, your colorful shoes, and we know that they help you stand out. How many pairs of shoes do you own, Don?
On my colorful shoes, I think I have 10 different styles on those, and I just started wearing them at shows, and I got so much attention from them, I just thought, there's something into this, and now I just wear the dadgum things all the time, and some people just think they're the strangest thing, but it gets me more business, and I've met more nice people from wearing those shoes, and I just wear them now every chance I get. So
hey, that's a great segue into our first question. What are some innovative ways that sales reps can use to make themselves stand out from the crowd?
Well, I've sold things all my life. I mean, before I sold promotional products, I was a good salesman, but I always tried to do things that were different, and I learned that from my dad, who sold Caterpillar road machinery, because my father sold a product that was more expensive than other tractors. Like Caterpillar was always a higher-priced machine than John Deere or whatever, and I watched my dad stand out by playing golf with people and doing things that his competitors wouldn't do, and so I thought, I was in the promotional products business, I had to make myself unique, and I've always tried to do that, and some of them are goofy and some of them are normal, but I use my shoes now, and it's even become our marketing brand. I still sell stuff through our distributorship, but even that's the branding that I use for Don Sanders Marketing, and I think if you're going to do this successfully, you just got to do something that makes people notice you in a favorable way, and I don't know how any other I don't know another way to sell this stuff besides the way that I do.
Now, you said that the shoes are included on your branding. I think I've seen them on your business cards. Is that right, or how else do you carry through the shoes?
Well, the shoes, the tagline for Don Sanders Marketing is, what does your branding say up? I have a bunch of different taglines. Like one of the pictures I have are like shoes in a closet with two black pair and a brown pair, and then my colorful ones next to it. And it says, what does your marketing say about you, or how can you brand yourself better? And it's kind of a subliminal message where you look at that and you think, well, this guy's trying to stand out, and maybe he can make me stand out too. And so I just came about this by mistake, by buying those shoes and wearing them the first time. I mean, it's not anything I put any thought to. I just bought the pair of these shoes, and I started wearing them at the ASI show, like in Chicago 4 years ago, and I was kind of shy about it, but people would just stop me and ask me, and I thought, if this gets attention in a positive way, I'm just going to do it. And I've overcome my fear of wearing them, and now I just wear them all the time, and I also use it as a qualifier Because if you don't like my shoes, I'm not going to be able to sell you. I can't change my personality, and most people can't. And my shoes really help me in another way. They drive away people that I'm not going to be able to sell because I'm going to either be too lively or too much for them, and it makes me focus on people that I think I can sell.
Now, let's paint a picture for people who haven't met you. Tell us about one of your craziest pairs of shoes.
Well, the fronts of them, they're all leather, and there's a guy in Scottsdale, Arizona, who makes custom shoes. It's called Cool Shoes. So, I mean, anybody can get them. I met him at an art fair in Dallas. He and his wife make these shoes. They travel around the country and sell them as art pieces. And he takes old reused tires and grinds them up and makes those as the soles. So the soles are kind of an eco thing. And he buys all old scrap leather, and they dye it, cut it, and hand sew the things, and then they paint the fronts like with different little goofy scenes. Like one pair I have has cactus. It's like a desert scene with cactus and a mountain and the sun coming up behind. And then I have another one with an octopus, which is chasing these little goldfish. And the little goldfish have yikes coming out of their mouths. And I have another pair with music notes all over them. He just paints the front on them, and you can also order them. I mean, you could order them as a corporate item, and if you give them 4 weeks, they'll make the shoes any way you want to. But I have not gone to that extent of having them custom made. I just buy shoes. I'll just email him and say, what do you have in size 12s? And he'll just email me back and say, I've got these 3 pair, and then I just buy them like that. But
I think Joan seems interested in the octopus shoes. We're going to have to look into those for her.
Well, the octopus is cute, but he's a friendly octopus. There's no menacing things on these shoes, so they're all happy.
That's great. Talk about a couple of top markets for the distributors should focus on if they're looking for new customers and new markets to penetrate right now.
Well, one reason that I think we've been able to do what we've done is I always try and move on to the next thing right before it turns, because if it's turned, if it's already there, it's not going to go anything but down. And at a point, we were on funeral homes, and then I got off on pawn shops. I thought, well, there's very few people calling on pawn shops, but I'm telling you, if I was to go call on anybody right now, it would have to do with Cuba. And I just went to Cuba 2 months ago, and now that the government is loosening on that, there are going to be so many trips going into Cuba that if I was to do what I used to do, I would be calling on travel agents now with items that are imprinted with Cuban artwork and stuff like that, because I think these travel agents are going to be inundated with people calling and saying, how do I get to Cuba, or what Cuban tours do you have? And if I was to do anything right now, that is where I would put my time. And I know people think that's strange, that what's up with Cuba, why would you want to go there? But it is just, people want to go there because it's been such a taboo place. And if I was to call on any market right now, that would be the one that I would try and focus on, because I don't think you'd have a lot of people saying, oh, that's crazy, that's not going to happen, because I think people know that eventually you'll just be able to go there just like you go to Miami or any other place.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's smart.
That's really great. I mean, it's obviously pays to pay attention to what's going on in the news to find out, in addition to new markets, what kind of products would you think would be hot sellers to maybe travel agents to get people?
Well, I'm not pitching suppliers, but I went to a show, a couple of months ago, and I ran into this creative leather imaging, and I just know the guy that owns it, and he does full color luggage tags imprinted on leather. And there's a lot of leather companies around that do debossing or will do one color imprint. But those tags were just beautiful. And like if you had a Caribbean scene or Viva Cuba or whatever in the heck it was, and you imprinted on those tags, then I would get some samples of those tags, and they wouldn't necessarily have to have that logo on them. But I would go and show those to travel agents and anybody involved with tours. There's a lot of tour companies going down. They're going to plan to go down there. But see, that would be an item that I would show. Also, magnets. Magnets would be a cool item. I think people would really like to have things with anything Cuban on it, because I brought back $100 worth of these cigars, and I've never smoked a cigar in my life, but I've got them here, and people beg me for these cigars, and they just want things that are from Cuba. So I think any promotional product that was decorated the right way with something about that place.
Yeah.
I
Maybe
think
perhaps
we're
like
going
a tech item too, to maybe a USB drive filled with information, because it is such an emerging type of a market right now. You would want people maybe to reassure them that, hey, it's a safe place. You know, you don't have to be afraid of it.
No, you just go to the Treasury Department website. It's treasury.gov, I think, and there's a form you can fill out, and you have to go right now for one of 14 reasons, and that can be religious, can be political, you're seeing your family or this or that, and I used to do travel stories for the Dallas Morning News and stuff like that, so I filled out the form as wanting to go as a journalist just to help do a story on the Cuban culture, and 2.5 weeks later I got the form back from the Treasury Department, so I can go by myself. I mean, when I went on a tour. But, see, I don't think people know that. So a cool item would be a flash drive that you could sell to a travel agent. And if somebody came in and said, well, you know, I'd like to know about going to Cuba, well, instead of giving them a brochure, they could give them that drive, and they could plug that drive, which is located with, you know, has their logo on it, in, and then the different steps to get the Treasury Department approval and the do's and don'ts in Cuba and what you do and this and that, but it's completely safe. I don't think people understand that. I felt safer there than I do in Dallas, and I saw less police, less military, and the people are lovely, and the crime is low there because the Cuban, they don't mess with it, and they know they're going to get in trouble. So I just think that'd be a cool product showing the ins and outs steps of going to Cuba, and then then you could show, they could list their tours they have, and I think for a travel agent that would be a really cool thing to give to people.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Now, Don, in our introduction, we said that you're used to profit margins of 43%. That's a great profit margin for a distributor. So what are a few tips? We always hear distributors who say price is such an issue with their clients. What tips do you have for distributors to do better in the profit area?
Well, I've always tried to call on people that price is not an issue, and they're there. They're hard to find, but they're there. And we were able to do what we did because I didn't waste time on people that wanted bids. I never did government work. I didn't do state work. I wouldn't fill out those bid sheets because even though those orders could be big, you might make 12-15% on it, and we wouldn't waste our time on that. I'm not being derogatory about that if somebody wants to do it, but I would not spend time working on those things, and then we would spend time looking for people that wanted full price. And we did a lot of rush orders, and we were reliable and had good credit, and I had good relationships with suppliers. So I could turn rush orders, and I was looking for people that needed rush orders, last-minute people. And even though the risk on them is high, if you know what you're doing, we would make 60% on my rush orders. And I didn't make 43% on every order. I don't want to mislead people on that. We did not. Some we made 30, and some I made 25, and I might have made 15 or 20% on some orders. But it was offset by the fact that we made a lot of money on rush orders. And I also never passed on specials to people that we dealt with. Like Bic is always having their pens on sale. 3M has a lot of specials. We just sold those products, and if they were on sale, I never approached a customer and said, hey, buy these pens today. By Friday they're going to be cheaper or on sale. I just sell them for full price, and then that's how I would make up. We would get up to that average because I would make more than 43% on a lot of orders that we did. So.
Yeah. So I know you mentioned, well, obviously with everything being emails and everything, what's an effective sales tactic that distributors can use without face-to-face meetings?
Well, I've gotten good at making YouTube videos on my iMac, and if I can make the things and figure them out, anybody listening to this show can figure it out. And because I did it by figuring out on the little there are a lot of YouTube videos on how to make iMac movies, and I would watch those, and it took me a while. But if I was doing what I was doing before, I would make my own product videos, and what I would do is, like, if I had, like, Dooley came out with color-changing cups, 3 or 4 years ago, and you say, well, these cups change colors. Well, you have to visualize that it's a translucent cup, and you pour in liquid, and the cold liquid makes the dye inside the polyurethane change to a color, and so it's a color-changing cup, but you don't actually see it. So what I did is I sat down and got my iMac and just got right in front of it, held a cup right up in front of that camera, and I said, it's Don with Don Sanders Marketing, and I want to show you a really cool product. And then I just poured the cold water in the cup, and it just changed right there where you could see it. And then I just talked a little bit more and said, these cups are 80 cents or whatever I said. And I just downloaded that to YouTube, got the link, and then we just sent that out to customers, and I sold 5 or 6 orders of those because I could visually show them what the product was doing, and that was all electronic. That was not by having to order samples or this or that. I just did that all by an electronic sales tactic.
That's great. And like you said, it's so easy now to be able to do that yourself. And people really do want to see visual.
Sure.
And video is even better than photos because, like Don said, of the demonstration factor. So that's great. Now, Don, you recently gave a webinar on how to sell 100,000 per month. I'm sure every distributor would like to do that. Can you give us some tips in that area or a success story that illustrates how someone could reach that goal?
Well, you cannot do that by yourself, and that's just not physically or it's not mentally possible to do that. You just have too many things to do. And when I think my ex-wife and I had a full-time assistant who worked for us, Denise came to our house. We had a big house, and we had 2 offices upstairs, and so I did this without a showroom. I did it without, the help of a really big distributorship, and we just had somebody that really knew what they were doing, and they worked for us every day from 8:30 to 5 or whatever it was. And then my ex-wife and I were pretty good salespeople. We would go out and try and sell the orders and look for the accounts. And then I had students from SMU work for me, and I had a job order in place at SMU constantly paying $10, $12 an hour for junior, senior students that wanted experience in marketing, which they all want that on their resume, that they worked for a marketing company while they were in school. And I had no shortage of students wanting to work for us, and we had somebody come to our house every day from like 11 to 5 who did prospecting calls for us. They built our mailing list up, found out the right contact at different companies, and then we mailed bounce-back cards offering free gifts to people. Like, if you'll send this card back, I'll give you a free 2-gallon tin of popcorn. I'll give you a Howard Miller clock. I'll give you this or that. And we just bombarded companies, architectural firms, funeral homes, trucking companies with these free offers. And I would get back about 6 to 8% return on those because people are mercenary. But then we would work the leads and qualify them. And once I got them qualified, I got them going. My students were trained well enough that they could handle our customers, their orders, and making sure they were happy. And then Susan and I just went out and looked for new people. So I'm just being honest with you. You're going to have a structure in place, and you're going to have a system to process 50 orders a week or whatever the heck we were doing without them getting messed up. And we had different systems. We had boards on the walls. These were the orders that we placed today. Had another board. These are orders that haven't been shipped. And another board said these are orders that are supposed to be delivered this week. And you constantly got to be watching that because if you screw up an order, you're just lost. And you just have to be real careful at it. So
sure.
Part of that long dissertation was if you're going to do it, you've got to have help. You've got to be organized. You've got to be smart about it. It's just not, riding a bunch of business in a haphazard way. Because if you're not organized, you can't do it.
Sure. And it seems like you have to be really smart about how you focus your time. And, so say that you're a sole proprietor distributor and maybe you've just gotten started in business, but you're starting to make some headway and get some momentum. When do you know it's time to bring in a support person like that?
Well, even if I was doing this for it might be 3 or 4 months after I was doing this. I mean, you can tell pretty quick if you're going to be able to pick this up. And some people just can't do it, and other people maybe can do it. And a lot of people are really good at it. But with the way it was, when we had our students, they had to come to our house because there was, back in the 90s when we did this, there was no internet. So we had to do all our work by phone or fax. But today, you could hire a high school student or a college student, and they could work for their dorm room or their home and make telephone calls for you or do prospecting lists. And they can do that at their leisure time and then build those lists and put them in Excel spreadsheets for you. But if I was doing this, I might have a student work 1 day a week for me or 4 or 5 hours a week just to have them do something, maybe do product research for you, or you'll know quickly, and that's the only way, because people call me all the time and say, Don, you sold all this stuff, what do you do? And the first thing I tell them is you've got to have some help, and it might be quick, and some people are just happy doing what they do by themselves. But if you want to sell a lot, you got to do something.
Yeah, sure. That's great advice. All right, well, we're going to wrap it up by asking one more question. You just returned from Cuba, so what was your very favorite thing about Cuba while you were there?
Good grief.
The cars.
No, well, I like history so much. I like architecture. I like forts. And the Spanish started building forts down there in 1580. And I am telling you, there are stone forts all over that place. And there's a bunch of remnants from the Cuban Missile Crisis there from 1962. The launch pads are still there where the missiles were going to be shot back at us. All that stuff is still there. And there's 2 mobbed-up hotels there, the Habana Hilton, Habana Libre. They were built by Meyer Lansky in 1958, and they're still there. They're Godfather. Well, that is Godfather. If you watch The Godfather, that is The Godfather 2, where they were in Cuba in those scenes. They were building those hotels, and Castro took them from them, and those hotels are intact. And the Habana Riviera is just like it was in 1958, the original. Artwork is on the walls, the furniture, et cetera, and it's just so cool because once you walk out of that terminal, it is just like being in 1958. And I have never, and I like old cars, I've never in my life seen as many 1950s cars, and they're jaked up and painted pink and yellow. It is the coolest thing you've ever seen. So I like the cars, I like the forts. The people were so sweet and nice, and they have nothing there. I mean, it's just stuck in a time warp, but I never felt any safer any place. And we went to a cigar factory. I went to a botanical farm. We went to I saw the most prominent marionette maker in Cuba. I know this sounds stupid, but this guy makes all the puppets for the Cuban theater, and he makes them by hand, and they're like 4-foot marionettes. And I mean, we went to his studio and talked to him. And I don't really care about marionettes, but after seeing that, I thought that was the neatest thing in the world. And there's a lot of homemade industry there that people are starting, and it's almost like early capitalism. I think that was what was really cool about it. But
that's great. Well, it's definitely going to be on my list to visit, hopefully, in the future. Yeah. Well, Don, it was great talking to you. Thanks so much for catching up with us. We appreciate it, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the ASI shows next year.
You will then see me in Orlando. That is my favorite show of the year, so I'm going to pitch that as a refreshing way to start the year and get motivated, and that's always fun down there, and the weather's pretty good, and everybody is happy and ready to go, so that will be my pitch for that show.
All right, great. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Don.
Okie doke. All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, thanks to everyone for listening today. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you next week.
Happy September.
Bye-bye.
Bye.